Hello, my name is Teresita Blanco, and today I wanted to read to you a little excerpt from one of my little standalone books. It's like, yeah, it doesn't have any sequels. It's just one book with one little story. Well, it's not a little story. Anyhow, the book is called La Casa, or The House. And contrary to what you might think, it's actually written in English. This is like the perfect book for like people that are like curious about Cuba but don't wanna don't wanna like do a bunch of research and stuff. It's like for you to get like everything you need to know about it, but like told from like the life of a family going through little small changes, like moving to a haunted house. Just a little creepy house. There's something odd about it. And there's also a dog. I should have called the book La Casa y el Perro. I ended up making a dog character very important. A very mean, ravenous dog that comes somewhere like around like chapter 5 or 6. And then he shows up again at the end. Like, I'm starting to think I should have called the book The Dog. Or, It's a very, but yeah. So yeah, I'm just gonna read you an excerpt, and hopefully what I read to you as a book might inspire you to give La Casa, or The House, a fair chance. It takes place in the 80s. Everyone loves the 80s. Even things were good in Cuba in the 80s. Well, good-ish. Well, as good as most things usually get in the 80s. Alright, chapter 1, The House. There was nothing special or extraordinary about this house. It could easily have been your house. This story takes place in a little island called Cuba. Most people do not know about Cuba. They hear about it from time to time. They are most familiar with the capital, Havana. This story doesn't take place in Havana. No, this house is located to the west of Havana, in a region known as Pinar del Rio. To the non-Spanish speaker, the place is called bushy side of the river, or forested zone by the river. There is a park about a couple of blocks away from the house that has a large Pomerian flower tree and some pines. The only other trees are a pine separating two roads that lead to the school. Behind the house there's a fence, and beyond it a little dirt park. It has some iron swings, a couple of slides, and a single wall covered by hibiscus flower. As for the rivers, there was not a single river near this house. To find any large bodies of water, one had to take a horse carriage to La Palma, or the palm tree. The reader might be tempted to think that this story took place during the colonial period, but nothing could be further from the truth. There was some semblance of technology and advancement. Our story begins in the year 1982. During that time, Cuba still maintained healthy relationships with the Russians, formerly known as the Soviets. There was still steak and chicken rations, and the Amistad stores were just opening. Dollars entering from the exterior was extremely limited and considered a contraband good. The exchange rate for $1 was 300 pesos. The house was situated in a street known as Isabel la Católica. The house itself had only one floor. Being a colonial house made during the time of the Spaniards, the roof was rather high. The doors too followed in suit. Each was cut to a perfect fit, about 10 feet high. The connecting bedroom doors were only 7 feet tall. The facade had only 2 feet tall windows made of wood with ornamental iron bars protruding from the walls. The windows were segmented into glass square. There was a second exterior solid wooden window made of solid wood to protect it. These two windows open within, and as soon as you enter, you are greeted by a majestic, large living room with a teardrop chandelier. The living room and kitchen floor was made of a marble checkerboard pattern. Meanwhile, the bedroom floors were made of red tiles. If you walk straight from this room, you arrive at the interior, walled concrete patio. This house, like many other ones of the neighborhood, were wall to wall. Beyond this patio, one found found the kitchen with the only working quote-unquote bathroom. Working was quote-unquote for good reason. Since this was a colonial house, the bathroom and electricity was a modern modification. There was only a single faucet that had running water, and it was not found in the bathroom. Through the usage of a hose, the two main water tanks were filled. The first was located in the back garden past the kitchen. This garden was also made of concrete. It had the only working faucet and a sink to wash the laundry. This water tank was made of copper. The second one was found in the interior and it was made of blue plastic. Aside from the water tank, the back garden had two gas tanks. They were mainly used for the gas stove. The kitchen also had the same tier glass chandelier. Each room had connecting doors. There was also a single door and a pair of windows that faced the garden. The windows in the bedroom were all small and rather high, requiring a stick to open them every day. The first room was the only one that did not face the garden. Rather, its doors opened to the living room. It also had a window facing the porch. It also came with its own chandelier. The two other rooms had regular single light bulb lamps. Since it was a colonial house, the wall interiors were painted white. The crown moldings had also been painted white as well. The kitchen did not follow in this pale scheme, since its walls were painted blue. This was not the original coloring of the house. It had originally a yellow wallpaper in the living room, a red one in the kitchen, and some silver ones in the bedroom. They had been painted over by the previous owner of the house. The interior garden was unassuming. The floor was made of concrete. It had a single grate that led into the sewers. It was somewhat ornamental. The problem with this ornamentation was that the magnolia tree of the neighbor. It towered over the house, and from time to time it would draw leaves into the concrete garden. When the grate was covered with leaves, it could cloud up, thus creating a flooding hazard. In a corner of this garden, there was a half-wave dipole antenna. The reader may be wondering about this useless concrete garden of the house. Truth be told is that despite the heat, there has never been a pool culture in Cuba. The nearest pool to the house was a public one. It had been created to train Olympic divers and swimmers. As such, it was extremely deep. It was not too uncommon for people to drown in it every so often. There were some other ones here and there, but they were relegated only to foreigners and high-ranking party members. The irony of this pool is that the first person who drowned in it was a foreign Olympic swimmer. None of the other locals remember the name of the dead foreigner, just that he was an Olympic swimmer. Foreigners tended to drop dead in Cuba from time to time, so this unfortunate drowning was nothing new. Neither the Cubans nor the world have ever cared about people dropping dead in Cuba. The entire point of this tirade is that this house will never ever get a pool, even though it has all the necessary characteristics for one. So do not be expecting a pool. No wonder why there isn't one in a house that should definitely have a pool. This was what the house looked like when the family first moved in. So other things were added to it later, but this is just the start of the story. We still have some time, so moving along to chapter 2, the Mason family. The family who permuted to this house was the Mason family. While in most parts of the world people bought and sold houses, the people in Cuba traded them like cards. Depending on the quality of the property, one could trade two houses for a better one, or trade down for more than one property. If anything, it was a quicker system for moving between houses. The homes did not have a specific value to them, and there was no home inspector. It was up to the homeowner to eyeball the quality of the house. This entire process was known in the island as permutar, or permutation. The Masons, like everyone who shared their last names, were still rotting away waiting for their inheritance. 2 generations had passed and still no millions of dollars. The father, who hailed from this family, still thought about it from time to time, but not enough to disrupt his daily routine. The father went by the name of Eduardo. He was 6 feet tall, coffee complexion with Asian eyes, skinny like a pole, with green eyes and straight red hair. During the early colonial years of his family, there had been a lot of mixed breeding. His great-grandmother, who was still alive, was Chinese. He was the second male son of a family of 7 daughters. Since he spent most of his early life looking after the girls and his oldest brother, it so happened that it took him the longest to get married. Now that all his siblings were settled, he was finally able to marry Angelica Ferreiro. She was native to La Palma, the rustic portion of Pinar del Rio. Angelica was 5'8" inches. She had beautiful straight black hair, a well-chiseled chin, green eyes, a tan complexion, and a slender frame like that of a ballerina. Indeed, she had studied ballet when she was younger, but then she got bored and tried swimming. When she got bored swimming, she played competitive ping pong and then did a bit of dancing. Since she had dreamed of moving up in the world, she worked on her grades. Eventually, she was assigned to become a doctor. In Cuba, you do not pick a career. The government chooses one for you based on your skills and grades. She met her second husband, Eduardo, while working in the polyclinic. After 2 years, they got married and had 2 children. Angelica would have liked to have more children, but her husband decided for her that 2 was more than enough. Since he was the head of the hospital, he had her tubes tied. This was a bit short-sighted in the long run, but nothing that hampered the stability of the marriage. While Eduardo was comfortable living in Cuba, Angelica dreamed of moving to Spain. Her weird cousin had lived there for a time and had returned with stories of siestas, free healthcare, and a fully stocked marketplace. It was the food situation that seemed the most appealing to Angelica. Like her mother before, she dreamed of being overweight. Still, she never said this aloud, or even allowed herself to entertain such a childish notion. No wife should ever hope to be so unappealing. To cope with her never-ending desire to eat, she resorted to the cylinder of nicotine. She had stopped her little nasty habit when she got married, but she had recently picked it up again. As luck would have it, both her children did not enjoy the best of health. Alright, I think I read enough of La Casa. I introduced the setting and most of the main characters. I hope that you found my reading amusing and that it inspired you to give my book a fair chance. It is both on the Kindle and on paperback if you want to read the book the traditional way. See, it has nice formatting for easy reading and whatnot. See? My brother and I worked really hard on the editing of this book. I hope you find it amusing. Bye bye and God bless.